The transfer portal. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. But luckily for the Oklahoma Sooners and Brent Venables, he's using the portal to his advantage because the Oklahoma Sooners just got in another talented prospect via the transfer portal, this time a defensive lineman by the name of Jonah La'ulu, who hails from Hawaii. We need to talk about this move, but I also want to break down the Sooners transfer portal moves in general and why they're interesting to me. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you happy that Laulu is now an Oklahoma Sooner? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though they may seem small, are massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all of that being said, we have got to talk about this because this is a move that I think is really nice because it adds quality depth to that defensive front from an individual that had high expectations at Hawaii. Coming out of high school, Laulu was only a 2-star prospect, but I do want to talk about this right now. Stars only matter so much. They're a great measuring stick, but by all metrics, they are not the end-all be-all. I give you this example because Sauce Gardner, the cornerback for Cincinnati, was rated outside the top 1,000 players coming out of high school. When he gets to college at Cincinnati, he is a shutdown corner and is by far and about one of the best defensive players in college football. Forget about the cornerback position. He is one of the top defensive guys in the whole landscape of college football. And so, sure, rankings and stars, they're great. They're awesome for us fans to point to and say, oh yes, we got in a 5-star. We got in a high-ranking 4-star. But we also have to remember that these metrics are not the end-all be-all, and field production at the next level is king. And that's why I bring this up, because even though he was a 2-star out of high school, he generated a lot of buzz at Hawaii, and in 2021, he had his most successful season. 33 tackles, 21 of which being solo tackles, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 1 pass defended. That's a really productive season from an interior defensive lineman, especially one that hit the transfer portal. And if you are the Oklahoma Sooners, you love getting that type of production in because it's someone who has proven that they can generate production at the next level, at the Division I college football level, but it also gives you quality depth that has experience. That experience can help bring about some of the younger guys. So I think it is a positive for multiple reasons. The other thing we need to talk about in relation to Laulu is when you get in a guy like this at 6'6" plus, you usually think, oh, it's a big defensive lineman. That's great. But this kid has a ton of athleticism to him, and that's what I think makes him a little bit unique. Because it's not too often when we're talking about the defensive line that we can point to them also being a tight end. However, in 2020, Hawaii did utilize Laulu as a tight end, so he has that athleticism that I think should excite the Sooners base and staff. Whenever you can get in a guy that size with that athleticism, why not be excited? But this carries me into something I also want to talk about is the use of the transfer portal in general by Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners. Because when Brent Venables came into the Sooners, there was an exodus of players. And my question then was, would Brent Venables utilize the transfer portal? Coming from Clemson, that's not something the Tigers usually do. However, it did not take long for Brent Venables to prove that he would utilize the transfer portal. And now I want to give my little spill on the transfer portal, just as I gave my little mini rant on stars and why they're great, but they shouldn't be looked at as the end-all be-all. Now you're going to get my little mini rant on the transfer portal. Because many of you know I'm in favor of the portal, and I don't think just because an individual enters the transfer portal that makes them any less of a football player or individual. Certainly not less of an individual because everybody's circumstances are different, and we need to realize some people are trying to do the best thing for themselves and for their future. And in a situation such as the transfer portal, I've seen a lot of people say, well, most of the time it's not like you're getting a quality player, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Because off the top of my head, and as the sign behind me dictates as an Alabama fan, I can point to multiple individuals who have hit the transfer portal both for the Tide and members leaving the Crimson Tide and have gone on to have sensational careers elsewhere. And I mean, first and foremost, I can point to this year Jamison Williams, who is wide receiver 4 for Ohio State, comes to Alabama and lights the nation on fire, and now he'll be one of the top draft picks in this coming NFL draft. So that was an individual who wasn't getting the opportunities he probably felt like he should have had, and let's be honest, Ohio State's wide receiver room is smacked loaded. I mean, you see Olave, you see Wilson, and then Jackson Smith-Njigba goes out there and sets the world on fire. I mean, that room right there is crazy loaded. But it just goes to prove that just because someone transfers doesn't make them any less of a player. Jamison Williams is absolutely one of the top playmakers in the nation. Forget offense, forget defense, he is that good. Anybody who's watched him can realize that the defense must account for him because he's a mismatch. But even further than that, Alvin Kamara was one time a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide before transferring to Tennessee. Jerome Ford, another running back for the Crimson Tide who transfers to Cincinnati and has a sensational career for the Bearcats. I bring all of this up to paint the picture that just because you are in the transfer portal doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have a productive career. But Oklahoma and Brent Venables have been making some really solid moves in the portal, and I think when you look at it, they're getting in guys that can not only provide depth, they can not only provide experience, but they have quality experience. Because we talked about La'ulu, and that is a great pickup on the defensive line, but now we can switch to the offensive side of the ball, where Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners have been very active in the portal. Whether it was for Daniel Parker, the Missouri tight end, which you lose Stogner to the transfer portal, you get in Daniel Parker via the transfer portal, you can see right here that Brent Venables is trying to make a team that is ready as soon as possible, and that is awesome to see, especially in a year where you just saw Mel Tucker and Michigan State really boost their stock. Now, the job isn't finished with Mel Tucker and Michigan State, certainly not, but it just gives you a glimpse of what is possible through the transfer portal if you're getting in guys that mesh well. And I've always been told Brent Venables is huge in relationships. Well, this is where these relationships can come through and pay massive dividends, is in instances such as the transfer portal. So you get in the tight end, Daniel Parker via Missouri, but you also get in an offensive lineman, McCade Mature. And this is a great pickup for a few reasons. First and foremost, he was rated as Cal's highest rated offensive lineman this past year, and he has the ability to play left guard or right guard. So when you look at that sort of flexibility plus experience, plus, he was already regarded as a really solid offensive lineman out the pack. If I'm not mistaken, second team all Pac-12. You can get that in, and it's just more competition on that offensive line for Bill Bedenbaugh, something I know he is really excited about. But it gives you more experience, a guy that can understand more looks, a guy that can help teach others about different types of looks. That experience is huge in college football, but especially at the offensive line position. So I love that addition. A guy from Cal that has the experience, that has seen things coming in and can help Oklahoma. But a double down on that is his younger brother is in the class of 2024 as a quarterback out of Texas, and he's going to be a really talented prospect, someone that a lot of colleges are going to want. Oklahoma already very highly thought of in regards to quarterbacks. Why not double down on that relationship? You get his brother, he can kind of build on that relationship with younger brother. It's just a win-win. And then finally, you have Dillon Gabriel. The same night Caleb Williams announces he's going to the transfer portal, Dillon Gabriel did not hesitate to jump from UCLA to join the Oklahoma Sooners. And that type of excitement is something that really reverberated through the Oklahoma Sooners fan base. And once again, Dillon Gabriel was a 3-star out of high school, but we need to understand he was hyper successful when he was at UCF, especially with his time with Jeff Lebby. Now he gets to continue the relationship with Lebby. Lebby has 2 years under Lane Kiffin, so you think when Lebby was with Dillon Gabriel at first, Lebby's only gotten better because he got to work closely with one of the top offensive minds in football. Notice I didn't say college football. I said football. We can argue all day long about Lane as a head coach, and sure, right, some people have points about how he's been as a head coach. I think he's improving. I think Lane's a lot of fun. But what we cannot argue about within good faith or good conscience, is how good of an offensive mind he is. Because right then and there, like, it's automatic. We know what Lane is on the offensive side of the ball. It doesn't even go without saying. So now Levy brings in that system to go with Dillon Gabriel, in which he already has familiarity, and this is the type of moves that you make in the transfer portal to really make splashes, to make big splashes, and ones that will help you next season. We don't know what Caleb Williams is going to do, and by extension, we don't know what Mario Williams is going to do, and I've said and been open, I think we need to be understanding of both of their situations. However, I love that Oklahoma is not hesitating. They are going out and getting guys that they've identified can help them, and they're focused on getting better, which is absolutely what you have to do. Very interested in hearing from y'all on this situation. I think it's a great pickup. I don't only want to hear about the defensive lineman that Oklahoma just got via the transfer portal. I absolutely do want to hear about that, don't get me wrong, but I want to hear your opinion about Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners' use of the transfer portal in general. That's it. See ya.